So I've been using the bike for about 3 weeks, 500 kilometers, and everything is fine. Just a small problem with the carburetor, which is not perfect, but nothing major. I could use it daily. But I noticed a problem with the especially when in second gear, when opening the throttle in quite aggressive, then the feeling was like if the chain was skipping a teeth on the sprocket, so it would jump kind of thing. Shouldn't be. It's not the chain, the sprocket, it's not the clutch. So I'm afraid it is the transmission gearbox problem, which means most likely I have to take the engine out again. Could be a bent fork for the shifting, or the gear itself, which is rounded off. It is frustrating because I had the engine out already and I didn't know about this problem, and now I have to basically redo everything again. But well, it has to be done. So I'm gonna start by taking the engine oil out and disassembling the engine as much as I can within the frame so that it's lighter to take it out.
I start by removing the skid plate, then I place some cardboards on the ground, because I know that even if I try, there will always be some drops of oil going on the floor. After that, I drain the oil from the engine block and start removing all the parts that prevent me from accessing the clutch side case. Foot pegs, brake pedal, kickstarter and exhaust pipe have to be removed. Then I disconnect the oil line and finally unscrew the bolts that hold the case in place. I already start removing some of the covers on the other side for better access.
Before I take the engine out, I want to check, how's it called, the mechanism behind it that shifts the gear when you move the pedal on the other side, that everything is fine over there. I want to check that. And so what I have to do is to remove the clutch basket, the kickstarter gear, so then I can see what's behind it. And yeah, I mean, anyway, I would have to do it if I take the engine out, so I'm gonna start from there. Hopefully I can find something wrong over there, and if that's the case, I will be able to fix the problem without taking the engine out. Otherwise, I just continue to the point where I can fully take it out of the frame. So finally, here's the part that I want to check. When you shift gear with the lever on the other side, then it moves into this star-shaped gear kind of thing. So this is the first gear, then second, third, fourth and fifth gear behind there. And as you can see, in between the first and the second, there's this cut here, so that's where the neutral goes. Now it's in first gear. Now it's in neutral. Now it's second, third, well, almost third.
I did not find anything obviously wrong with the shifting arm and shaft, so I have no other option than taking the engine out. That means I have to remove the seat, fuel tank and side plastic covers before I can access the bolts of the valve cover.
Valve cover is out. Next, camshaft, cylinder head, and then the cylinder. I'm speed running this. Let's go. Okay, ready. So out goes the cylinder head. As soon as it come on. Oh. Next, cylinder.
Last time, one of the cylinder bolts had rounded off and gave me quite some troubles, but luckily this time I managed to remove all of them without problems. After taking off the cylinder, I loosened up the engine mounts and removed the electric starter. The engine is finally free to go on the workbench again.
Me and my best friend again. Engine is out. Now, just do what I never did. So open it here halfway and check the gears.
I've put the clutch side cover on again just as a protection while I was moving the engine around. Most of the components are already disassembled. There is still the oil pump, chain tensioners, timing chain and shifting camshaft gear to be removed. Also the primary gear connected to the crankshaft has to be taken off before I can split the engine.
Out of the 10 bolts that I need to remove, only 2 are damaged. So could have been worse.
To get the bolts out, I first make a cut through the head, being extra careful not to damage the crankcase. Then I heat everything up with a heat gun in the hope of loosening up the bolt, and finally, using a chisel and an impact gun, I managed to get them out.
Took some fighting, but they are out. Finally! Ta-da! First time I do this, so I had to use the screwdriver to separate it a little bit, which is not suggested, but this one, as you can see, it's all rusty, so it was not really sliding off. So I tried to be very careful and don't use it to make leverage, but just to slowly push it up. And yeah, it seems like I didn't make damage, so it's okay. And yeah, now I have to carefully take it apart because all of these tiny things have a very crucial role, and figure out what is the problem with the second gear. This is not good. I think this is coming from the chain guide. So I believe it's the coating.
Anyway, I will replace the chain guide later on, but now I focus on carefully taking apart the gears, memorizing the order of each of them, and keeping them tidy and organized on the table. While I'm removing the parts, I check them one by one for signs of wear or damage.
Right, so power goes from here to this one. This is the output, this is the in, and this is the second gear. These two matching. You see there are these parts here go into these holes. So now the two gears are engaged. If these teeth round off, then the gears start sliding, right? And that's what I was feeling on a bike. These two are the ones involved in the second gear. There is a clear sign that it has been slipping there. But the question is if it's just them getting old. So these are the forks responsible of engaging or disengaging the gears. And it might be that if the fork is bent, then it doesn't fully push the gear into place, and then it's not fully engaged, and then it's easier to slip, and then it wears off. So now that the gears are out, what could have been the reason of the damage? Because I don't want to buy new ones and mount it and then figure out after, I don't know, 200 kilometers that the problem is there again. And basically mount the gears back, also with a shifter and everything, so that I can see and try to test the shifting and see if maybe they're not fully engaging but just partially, and that would create the damage, and then find out why. New parts got delivered. I should have everything I need now to put the engine back together. New gaskets, new oil filter, some screws, some springs, just small stuff. And then luckily I managed to find second-hand a new set of forks, shifting forks, as well as a new set of gears. So this is the old one and this is the new one. You can see that the old one here, it's worn. I think this is the reason of the problem, while this one is in good shape. So because here it's worn, then it doesn't push the gear fully into position, it doesn't engage properly, and then it slips. These two also look better on the inside and on the dogs here, the connecting parts. Yeah, now it's just a matter of putting it back together and put the engine back in the bike, and crossed fingers. I'm going to start by cleaning the surfaces here. Then I will polish this side of the piston, which has small superficial scratches. This is the old one, this is the new second hand, and you can see on the old one here it is worn off a little bit more than this one, even though also this one is not perfect. And same goes for these ones that are a bit rounded off on the edge. Now the gears are in. I have to put the shift drum in. I'm gonna put some clean engine oil on the surfaces all around so that it helps at the first start.
To properly mount the gears in the case, both the primary and secondary shafts have to go in as a whole. Then the shift forks slide into place, and while they are still loose, I mount the shift drum and slide the forks into the grooves. After that, I can place the fork shaft, which has to be secured with a bolt and a safety washer. The last part to go in before mounting the right crankcase is the gear spindle.
The transmission is back in place. To test it, I have to put the other case so that everything doesn't do this anymore when the case is on. And then I have to test moving through the gears. Before I can do that, I have to clean up remove the old gasket. What I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna attach the shift lever on the other side and then test the gears. Okay, so looks fine. Now it's in neutral, so as you can see it's the only one that can go in between gears. And then on the other side I'm using the shift lever to change. Normally it's normal that the wheel and the engine has to be moving for the gears to properly engage, so it might be that sometimes it gets stuck in between. So now we are in first gear, up, neutral, up again, second, third. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Now it's kind of halfway through, but as soon as I move this, that would be the engine power input, and on the other side here is where there's the sprocket for the chain. So basically simulating the bike to be moving, then it automatically adjusts. So I'm back to second, third, fourth, fifth gear, same story, but I move it a little bit and then it snaps into position. I don't feel much contrast in the shift lever, so I think everything is okay. Then I will continue with, well, placing the bolts all around that keep the two halves together. Okay, so now the two parts are back together. Next is chain guide, chain tensioner, the stuff for the Kickstarter, clutch, oil pump.
I basically do what I did when taking it apart, but in reverse order. First I put the new chain guide, then the chain and the gears. To tighten the nut at the correct torque value, I temporarily mount the clutch basket so that I can use it to hold the shaft while pulling the wrench. With that done, I mount the oil pump and the oil line.
Here's the situation. Unfortunately, yesterday my phone died because here we are at around freezing temperatures, so batteries are not really lasting long. But I finished with mounting the Kickstarter and the clutch. Now what I have to do is to clean up the old gasket and then close it. Once it's closed, then I'm gonna put the engine in the bike and then mount the cylinder and the head with the valves. Okay, so the engine is, well, ready to go in the bike. I'm gonna put it like this in the bike instead of finishing it up on the bench, because I'm alone today. There's no Laura helping me, so it's lighter to move it like this than when it's complete. Let's go.
It is much easier to fit the engine in the frame like this compared to last time. I struggle a bit with matching the holes of the engine mounts, but that's quickly solved with the support of a bottle jack. Then I can start mounting the cylinder.
Okay, so the cylinder is mounted. I just have to torque the bolts to specs. Now comes the fun part of placing the chain sprocket and the camshaft, and it has to be phased with a crankshaft. So you can see the mark over there, the T. So now the crankshaft is at the right place. Now I have to phase the top. And now you can see that the two marks here, 1 and 2, are lining up with the... So now I have to turn it around, put the second screw like this one in, which is on the other side, and then it should be done. So in the meantime, I've checked the valves clearance and everything is okay. Now what I'm gonna do is close all the engine mount bolts and then start mounting all this extra stuff.
First, I torque to specs the engine mount bolts. Then I mount the air suction valve and start routing some of the cables. To put the sprocket back on the transmission, I have to loosen up the back wheel to have a bit of chain slack. Then I mount the shifting pedal and in the end, the sprocket cover. With the left side completed, I move to the other side and mount the Kickstarter.
I was doing good progress, but there is something off with the Kickstarter. As you can see, it works, but then it's supposed also to spring back automatically, which is not. So I believe I did something wrong when mounting it in the case here. So I have to well, take the side cover off and check what's wrong there. Maybe the spring didn't hook properly, but so in the end it was nothing major. But yeah, the annoying thing is that to access this one I had to remove the clutch again. But yeah, it was just that when I mounted it I didn't preload the spring enough, so then it unhooked from there is a hole there where the spring hooks in, so basically there was no return spring, and now it's okay.
With the Kickstarter problem solved, I mount back the clutch basket, which has a safety washer behind the nut that has to be bent into the notch so that the nut cannot get loose with the engine vibrations. Then I put the clutch discs and plate, the pressure plate with the springs, the gasket, and finally the side cover. After torquing all the bolts, I mount the brake pedal and the Kickstarter.
Good. So now before I continue, I mean there's not much left. The exhaust to be done. Foot bag here, passenger foot bag and plastics. But before I do that, well, the carburetor clearly is missing, but I want to open it and see if I can adjust a couple of things that were giving me problems. First of all, I bought a new jet, bigger one. It's the main jet to replace this one because this is size 145 and this one is size 162, the new one, and 162 is the one according to the manual. So I don't know why this one is smaller, but I want to try to put the bigger one. This should affect the carburation when opening the throttle over half, but not really, it doesn't really make a difference for the low RPM. Then the other problem that it has, I think it is related to the vacuum piston struggling to go back into position. So it's a spring mechanism that when opening the throttle, the wire pulls this one, which opens inside here, as well as push this one that moves the vacuum piston here, and at the bottom of it you see there's a needle, and that's the one going into the over here to the jet that I just changed. But I have the feeling that sometimes this doesn't return properly or fully. Not sure why, but I'm gonna check the top. So you see there's this spring, which is quite soft. This is the vacuum membrane that when I push from the bottom it goes up, and when these ones get old then they're not smooth in opening and closing anymore, and then they could cause issues. There's another spring, this one, that is responsible of the mechanism, of the return of the mechanism opening the thing there. I'm gonna polish a little bit the surface here and then try. I've quickly polished it and cleaned it with fuel. Now I'm gonna use some silicone spray to help the rubber stay soft. So the manual says to hold it up like this, so the membrane doesn't get pinched in the lid when mounting it. So everything that was necessary is mounted. I just have to put engine oil and then I'm gonna start it. So I'm going to do the same test as I did last time because I want to make sure that the oil pump works fine. So I remove the case here, and if the pump is working fine, there should be oil coming out. Now I have to check the oil level again. What I want to do next is check that the gears are engaging properly. Overall seems to be good. I just have to mount. Now I'm gonna mount the seat, the missing foot peg, so that I can do a short ride. Let's see if I can start it with a Kickstarter now that it's warm. So first test was actually good. The second gear is not slipping anymore, and the bike seems to be fine. I just drove it for a couple of kilometers, so first I have to do a proper long test to to say that everything is fine, but I have the whole workshop to tidy up. So I leave it here, clean up the workshop and finish it up tomorrow, and then use it to go to work. New day, same bike. Yeah, just checked, and there are no oil leaks, so that's a good sign. Now it's just a matter of mounting all the plastic bits, and I got 2 new accessories. I got them for a good price, and they just add to the general style of the bike. Ready, everything mounted. It does look a little bit better with a plastic cover on the front fork, and I'm missing the sticker here, but I bought it already, so I'm waiting for the delivery. I mean, with all the money and time I spent on this bike, I might as well spend 20 euros more for a sticker and make it look nicer. So what I'm gonna do now is go for a short ride, do the final adjustment, check the oil level, and then consider it ready for the daily use. I was going to work, and all of a sudden the clutch cable broke. So here it is. And what am I gonna do now? Here's the solution. So I managed to get home. It was not easy, so I was basically driving and using this one to pull for the clutch, but the clutch is very very hard to pull and also difficult to micromanage it, especially when in the city traffic, when taking off at a stop. And on top of that, at a certain point the speedometer stopped working, so I guess the cable is broken. But I'm just like, what's the matter with this bike? It's so unlucky. And in addition to all of this, it's freezing cold. Well, I want to check the problem with the speedometer. So basically we have three components involved in the speedometer. We have the speedometer box itself, the cable, which I've already disconnected, it goes in the box, and in the end this one, which is the one connected to the wheel hub, so turns the wire in the cable and finally goes in the speedometer box. So we have three components that has to be checked where the problem could be. Usually the problem is with the cable itself, that it breaks. So when it's broken, you can just, if you pull it, it would come out, but it doesn't, which means it is still in one piece. So then what we can do next, so I was saying this is the bottom part of the cable that then plugs into that over there. So we can check if the cable is broken. Well, now I can't see it on camera, but by turning this one manually, when I look at the bottom, this one is also turning, which means the cable is not broken. Next, we can check that this one, when spinning the wheel, should move, but it doesn't. It's not turning that. So that means the problem is not the cable itself, which would have been good because it's just like 10 euros. But the problem is in here, and I don't know what it is. I have to take the wheel off so this one can come off as well and check what could be the problem there. So here we go. I got the new parts delivered. Well, new second-hand clutch cable. Then I also have this, which goes onto the wheel, well, on the other side, like this. So there are the two connecting pins, and basically when the wheel is spinning, it moves this, which then you can see it turning inside. And then there's the cable and it goes to the speedometer, I believe. So this is the old one, and there's something broken inside. It doesn't spin anymore. So then I also got a new spark plug and a new air filter. The reason why I'm changing these two is that, well, they are fairly cheap, less than 10 euros you get both of them. And I want to see if changing these two will address the carburation issues, because looking at this was the spark plug that was on the bike. It's on the white side here, the color, which means it's most likely lean, the mixture. So that means there is too much air in the mixture of air fuel. And I believe that the air filter which is now on the bike, it's kind of a performance air filter which allows to have more air going through, and this one should be like a standard one. I'm gonna try it out, just, you know, peace of mind. Instead of going crazy trying to adjust the carburation, I will just spend 10 euros and maybe that solves it. So this is the difference between the two, the old one and the new one. Now the new one is mounted, and as you can see, when I spin the wheel, this is also moving, which is good.